Hi there, my name is Jamey Hardesty, Head of Strategy at Jack Health, and we're going to be discussing a bit on how healthcare companies and pharma brands can leverage their corporate master brand to establish trust and be a driving force for change, and how companies and products are perceived by external audiences. So thanks for being with us today, Kimberly and Laurie. For our first question, we've seen the role of the master brand begin to show up in pharma more and more of late. Why do you think that's happening? What are some of the reasons and benefits that would explain that trend and why we're seeing it more? And why now?
We've seen a shift in people going from not knowing which company made their treatment or the flu shot that they got, to actually talking about which type of vaccine did you get, and then associating pros and cons of each, and having conversations about it. So I think a lot of the bigger companies are seeing the benefit of, well, okay, now we're a household name. What do we do with that? But even smaller companies, I think, are appreciating that the corporate brand is where you establish your values. It's where you develop that overarching promise. And I think it matters even more if you're a company that might be evolving, your business might be changing, and people might not know you and all that you do. So if you're trying to recruit or you're trying to make sure that people know about certain treatments, you're not getting the credit that you deserve because there is a perception issue.
But what happens in the case that you're newly introduced and now I need it and I need to feel a feeling, and the feeling is trust? And we know that trust overall brings a halo that's important to that master brand. It impacts not only the core audiences who may be consuming those medicines, those prescriptions and whatnot, but it also includes people who may want to work for you in the future. Having that trust extends beyond a particular product need into a scalable, more global institution of feeling. You know, there's the rational and the need, but then there's the emotional and the connectivity, and trust plays a critical factor.
Yeah, they expect you to communicate, your values, your mission, your purpose. And as we know, that's incredibly hard to do at the product level. How would you recommend healthcare brands navigate those challenges to be able to implement a master brand where they don't have an overly recognizable one or not a ton of equity in it today, to work more lockstep across their organization?
There's a challenge in recognizing that the way that organizations are organized internally, that those silos are perpetuating the problem, because the way that consumers are experiencing their brand out in the world is more of a continuum, right? So you might have different goals, different timelines, different ways of measuring performance, whether you're focused on the brand or demand. Whereas if they were to really turn the lens and focus on the audiences they want to reach, work together to identify some of those touch points and where they show up and how they're showing up, they could create more efficiencies.
The importance of having a red thread that runs all the way from the master brand down to specific needs and product-based marketing is there to ensure the consistency of that experience, no matter where that person is interacting or intercepting with that brand. Brands that don't have that master brand are missing a whole opportunity among people who may not be in that lower funnel demand. And so when they do end up, or should they have a friend or someone else as a caregiver in that position, you don't want to have to build that. You want to have some basis of understanding about that master brand at the point in time that it begins to impact your and your loved ones' lives.
And additionally, in working in that integrated fashion, you actually reduce the amount of content that you need to produce. You start to save not only time, but also money on what you're creating and what you're sharing, because you are working together to make sure that you have that united experience that all ladders up to that brand and protects that trust. So I think there's this perception that it takes more work to do it. It's really just having an internal cultural shift to understand and meet audiences where they are, and then reap the benefits for it.
What would success look like as you begin to think about implementing a master brand, and how do you sort of navigate those internal headwinds that can feel like they're pushing against you and are in the way of moving this forward, to show that all areas of the funnel really do accelerate the road to building awareness, trust, loyalty, growth for the entire organization?
You could argue that piloting now in an instance of when the business is doing well is actually a way to be ready for if there becomes a time of downturn. As an example, we could talk about a market or paired markets, and we want to build trust, and we know that digital audio is something that the target is consuming more and more of. It's become part of our cultural lifestyle. Nothing shows but uptrend in consumption of digital audio. So maybe there's a start with a produced radio ad or digital audio ad, and we run that in a market under tight parameters and have our measurement that needs to be separate and different from how you would measure lower funnel efforts. And we start there, and you claim a win along the victory path every mile. And it's going to help in the time of need and when that growth is desired. And there's no way to really do that if you don't make it part of the discipline of the marketing strategy to embrace that philosophy that we need to try things that we don't have as high of confidence in how it's going to return in order to achieve that leapfrogging growth.
I think there's a hesitation to take away from R&D, to take away from the work that really matters. And there's this perception that investing more in marketing is taking away from that. When if you figure out how to do more of an integrated approach, you are saving money. You're not going back and reverse engineering anything. You're not creating more risk out in the world. So it actually is helping the greater good, the greater cause, the greater mission. It's just not immediately obvious.
The more that you're able to integrate these teams and have them working together, the better health you're going to have across your marketing organization as a whole, and be able to convert when it comes time for patients to make choices about products. It absolutely seems like the era of the master brand in healthcare is here. Thank you, Kimberly, Laurie, for your expert perspectives on the role of the master brand today. Have a great one.